Hello guys, welcome to our application demonstration. We are actually came up with a solution for the backup problems regarding the mobile phones. So here we are, our team tech bots. We came up with a solution for the backup problems in mobile phones. So essentially, what we are doing is we are having we are implementing an Android application which can back up your SD card data, whatever is essential to a remote server, and on your demand, it can retrieve from that remote server and restore it into your phone in case of loss of data or something. So essentially, I'm going to talk about three things here. The planning process behind this project, the demonstration of the project, of course, and I'll pitch in to the solution at the end. So uh, about planning process first, we were thinking how to implement this in an application level, so we came up with um, some ideas regarding how to implement or where to implement and all the platforms essentially, like the first one is obviously Android application, which runs on an Android mobile phone, where the data is residing. And the second one, you have to have a server-side script, which we later implemented in PHP. Uh, then a database, we implemented using MySQL. Uh, this is essentially for the storing of the um, files and other details like username, password, credentials, etc. So this is the platforms we are talking about. Then when it comes to the internal specification of the specifications. And now we will start with the Android app first. Like Android app, we first thought about how to implement backup application essentially. So we searched for some libraries, and one of the major library we got was from Google. The problem with the Google library was it was not giving the users an option to backup from other application data or other files, etc. So this is a major issue because it was not our focus point. We had to back up from a SD card, a particular SD card folder, not from our own application data. So we thought it's better to come up with our own solution rather than using an available library from Google. And it the advantages are, of course, it will provide more flexibility. Like you can have multiple forms of multiple formats of data and multiple forms. Like you can have several hashes. You can implement your own cryptographic algorithms, and again, version controlling is very easy. Like you can define your own version controlling. Like you can have your own uh, like user defined revisions of the same files, etc. So that is about the library specs. Then um, these three are actually the core points of the application. One is optional, that is remote deletion, but these three are the core points. Like one is policy. The major one is policy. Policy is like essentially set by an administrator of the company or the user himself, that he can define what and all files or the folder in the SD card to be backed up to the remote server, so that at later point when there's a data loss, he can retrieve the same data from the server. So this is actually the things what we have to back up, and what all the parameters we have to consider. The see, like you can back up a file to a remote database, you can edit the files, and you can keep the revisions of the files also. So how many revisions of the same files can be backed up, or if a new backup comes to that new file comes to that folder, that also has needs to be backed up. So essentially it talks about which and all files to be backed up, how many revisions of the files should be backed up, etc. And based on what like timestamp, how to synchronize these backups, like how often, like you can tell about the time uh, implementation perspective, mainly like um, synchronization, how often the backup should be done, all those things are defined in the policy. So this policy essentially a user can view it. In backup, we are talking how to send these files across the internet and store it in a remote database. We'll be having a username, we'll be having a password. Along with that, we will be having a folder ID or an identifier for the directory, so that each user can have his own directory, and in this directory we can store all the files that are coming from his account. So this is one thing. So this can be provided using the first, sorry, login phase. In login phase, you're logging in as a user with a username and password, so that this username will map your all the local files to a remote database directory. So the restore also pretty much works like the same way. Whenever you want to restore something, it will go to the remote database, and it will see uh, the corresponding mapping between your username and the identifier. And this, using this identifier, he will select the directory, and these all the files in that directory will be retrieved to the phone. So this is pretty much about restore, login, backup, and policy. Uh, so then we have covered all these topics. Now we can talk about, yeah, sure, how actually that implementation works if you want to synchronously back up the data. So it essentially uses the SHA-256 algorithm for the hashing purpose. So every time when you send a file, it will first generate a hash of the file here in the phone itself, and it will send the hash first before sending the entire file, because it's again sending the file, it's always time bandwidth utilizing, so you don't want that always if it is not necessary. So you'll send the hash only to the server will generate the hash of the existing file system, and they will compare those two files, and only if it is necessary, then only he has to push that file to the other side. And he will see the timestamp also, so that according to the timestamp you can have multiple versions of the revisions of the same file, which is defined by the policy. Then you can have an AES-256 algorithm implemented, so that you can have uh, security, more security for encryption. Basically, we can have an encryption for the files we are storing in the database. Then one of the most important part is remote wiping. Actually, we thought we had a plan to implement this thing, but we because of the time constraint, we had to drop it. It essentially. So here I'm going to demonstrate the backup application. So this is the web server which is running in my laptop. So it's actually, we could have implemented the same thing in a remote server also, um, provided that you have access to that particular online server. So we choose to go with local server here, using WAMP. So setting up WAMP and setting up that port forwarding, so that your mobile phone can talk to this local server. Everything is explained in the README file properly. So for that, you have to do some you have to configure your mobile phone's Chrome browser also. So open up your Chrome browser and type in this address, localhost 8100. Your phone should be connected to the um, lap local server PC, and you say go. It will show you the WAM server in your mobile browser. Do not close this, just minimize it, it should be there. And now we'll open our application, which is backup application. You can see the splash screen here, and here you'll be asked to enter your username and password. Here I'm giving a sample password and username, which is stored pre-stored in the server. 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, now I'm pressing login, so I'll be logged into the application. See, this is where that policy backup and restore comes into picture. Here you can specify which file, which folder should be backed up. So I'm telling like I would like to back up all the files under this company uh, folder to be backed up to the remote server. So I say please back up this thing using this button, and they say it's file upload completed. See uploaded file here, localhost backup uploads. This one is actually our local server actually. So you can see, if you want, we can go to the uh, a local directory here in upload folder. In 01 is actually the 01 is actually our directory for that particular user, so that will be backed up here. Now suppose if this file gets deleted from this company, so you need to back up to some other you need to back up it from the remote server. So see, we can go here, and I'm creating a particular folder named AAA. So I would like to back up to this, restore server the server file to this folder. So for that I can set a policy like this should be restored to this particular folder in the SD card. So I press this restore button. You can see file restore completed, and you can see the restored value here. See here, you can see the restored file information. So restore is completed successfully. So this is the solution we were um, that is expected. That is, so this is the basic working of the application. Due to time constraint, we could then implement the um, remote wiping kind of use cases, and the timestamp use cases. I mean multiple revisions of the use case. So thank you very much.